first and foremost, we're excited that you're coming to the US. I think it's like such an incredible opportunity for athletes here. For people who don't know what transforming basketball is and the clinic that's going to be here in Newton, what can they expect?
They could expect really to see the game in a completely different way, not only from the athletes, but to the coaches as well. And it's about educating and allowing these athletes and coaches to experience just that, the more conceptual ways with which the game is being played and how coaching and training is evolving to the more contemporary ways in which we could give these athletes a lot more autonomy and the confidence they need. But it's understanding of the game. It's not just going out and being told do this, do that, and be repetitive and stripping them away from that. It's allowing them to gain just so much more deeper understanding of the game, but then also in a sense, like I said, and the biggest thing for me is the confidence and the understanding. And it's just using sport as that vehicle and so many things instilled with this. And it just comes down to simply shifting our approach with how we're starting to train, but also how we're starting to educate as coaches, trainers, practitioners, these athletes in that capacity. So.
Well, it's so interesting to hear you say that because I think there's so much in sport where you can coach, you can coach, you can coach, but when it comes down to it, it's the second decisions that these athletes have to make on the court or on the fields or on the ice, right? They have to have the confidence and the knowledge to make these decisions. What led you specifically, Kerri, to do what you're doing now?
It came down to experiencing really both worlds. And so growing up, it was, and I'm not old in per se, but the game, just like how everything else in life does evolve and it grows and adapts. And so I kind of, and where the game was at was a lot more traditional and, sets and patterns and all that. And then it was only into my pro kind of career and stage where my player development coach and best friend started to dive deeper into the more ecological and contemporary ways with which we could train and where player development and ultimately the game in general is shifting towards. And by me experiencing and going through it firsthand, where athletes struggle, they fail, it's a true learning, really, where there's challenge and it's interesting, it's unfamiliar, it's uncertain, all these things that where true, authentic skill and learning takes place and needs to take place within an environment. I experienced it myself. And by going through it and understanding and feeling what they would feel, the doubts, the unsure, and just like the discomfort with it all, but then to see the other side and the return on the investment and how it does work if you give it time, if you trust it, but if you also respect it. You can't trust the process unless you respect it. And you can only respect it is if you could understand it. And by understanding it, you have to lean all the way into it. And it will be uncomfortable. And so for me, experiencing it firsthand and telling, and specifically females, just with how they move and I know so many different kind of components and factors that kind of go into this, just with differences between males and females that are inevitable. I tell the females, no, I couldn't move like this when I demonstrate something, when I'm doing. So I know how you're feeling, but girls, trust me, if you could lean into it, and even coaches as well, you'll see it. And when you start to feel it and experience like this whole world that you've kind of been missing, you'll never go back. So for me, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing now currently and why I'm so passionate about it, specifically with the females, is because I have physically lived through it. I've done it. And I could really tell you firsthand the return on it is way greater than the short-term temporary pain that you go through in this learning experience.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring coaches into it, and I know there's an opportunity when you're in town for coaches to kind of to look in and to watch how you are communicating with the athletes, what you're teaching them. Why is that an important part of this process if these athletes are going to lean in and are going to try to get better?
It's everything because first and foremost, it's a relationship between you and the athlete versus traditional coaching. It's seen, or even educating in general, it's seen as here's the educator, here's your mentor, here's anybody, and here's this. For me, in contemporary player development, but even in this way with which coaching and educating should be seen, is really here. It's a relationship, and we're having conversations. I always say I want to have a conversation with an athlete. I want to work alongside of you because as much as I'm educating you, you are educating me. And we're growing within that sort of capacity. And by growing and discovering and figuring out along together, we start to have not only authentic skill take place, but also learning that's going to be retained, that's going to be transferred. Because at the end of the day, we want that to happen. We just don't want them to learn what they could do right now. We want them to learn and perform later on as well.
This lean in process, and this might be a silly question, Kerri, but
Ah,
when you say lean into the process and lean into trust it, what might that be look like for someone? So like if someone's like, okay, but how is that different than what I'm already doing at practice? What are they gonna see at this clinic from you that is trusting the process that might feel uncomfortable?
it's encouraging and redefining failure. So they're going to miss a lot. The outcome is not going to come right away. And you mentioned it beforehand. And what the game really essentially is, it's all about interactions, patterns, as well as the ability to, explore and, find those ways with which are best for you. And the only way you could do that is through messing up a lot and uncertainty. And that's learning. It's non-linear. It's not going to look like this. It is going to be messy. It is going to look as though you're not going to have progress, but in reality, it is compounding. So, and that is where, as I said, authentic behaviors and skill emerge within the messiness. So this camp and the way with which I approach training and ecological dynamics and just the more contemporary approaches versus the traditional ones, it is encouraging and providing an environment where they're safe to fail, where, okay, that miss is an error, but it's an error that's going to give you the feedback before I even do. And you're going to learn something from each rep, from each miss, and you have to understand that you're not going to get the outcome, the successful outcome for a little bit just yet, but it's the decision and being able to coach the decision and empowering them to understand, okay, it didn't go in, but it was the right thing to do in that situation, in that time. And because the game is unpredictable, and that's what we have to do. And it's all about a decision. If nothing requires a decision, then it's not going to transfer and it's not representative. And then that's where athletes say, like I can do it in practice, but I can't do it in the game. Well, okay, coaches, are you giving them the challenge? Are you forcing them to make a decision? And then that is where really, in all essence, you're going to mess up a lot. You're going to fail. It's going to be very uncertain. And from the outside in, it could look like we're just goofing off, or we're not putting the ball in the hoop and that's the name of the game. Okay, but in reality, we're attacking so many other qualities and different skills and the decision. So really, it all comes down to, understanding learning is not going to be straight. Some days we may progress, we may regress, we may stay where we are. But at the end of the day, if we could, as I said, lean into it and it goes to, yeah, can we as coaches and even athletes start to see failures more as opportunities that should be applauded and should be learned from rather than discouraged and then yelled at?
What I'm hearing you say also is that this camp and this clinic is not necessarily only for the people who want to go on and play basketball in college or professionally or anything like that. Who is this camp and clinic meant for?
It is meant for those that want to challenge themselves and put them in a position to see what they could actually and truly achieve when they're faced with discomfort. And those that want to learn how to learn from failure, how to start to shift the narrative. And again, not even just basketball specific, and it could be applied in any sport. We have so many coaches that have inquired the from soccer, from baseball, and that's where again it could just click, it could hit a chord with an athlete a different way. And so it's just instilling all of these ways with which bigger picture, this is how effective learning occurs. This is how it's attained. it's how it's retained, and then it's how it's transferred. Because that, at the end of the day, is what we want. And we want these athletes to be successful in performance. And again, I always say athletes because they are athletes at the end of the day. The best athletes are the best movers. And you have to be the best and most proficient mover if you ultimately want true, authentic, and being the most skillful within your sport, whatever it is. So for me, I want different athletes here because why? They come with different movements, they come with different solutions. And then, yes, it could be applied and then help that basketball person. That basketball person can now help that soccer person in their field. And coaches, you could start to learn, oh, wow, they did that in basketball. Oh, that could help solve my issue and how I want to structure this concept, this strategy, because that is the beauty of ecological dynamics and this approach in more contemporary ways because it is applicable in any and every sport.
Amazing. Well, Kerri, thank you so much for your time today. And we're excited to have you here in Boston.